The grand halls of the Galactic Council gleamed with an otherworldly shine as Earth's first official delegation stepped through its crystal doors. Ambassador Thomas Miller wiped his sweaty palms on his formal suit, trying to maintain his composure. Behind him stood General Robert Ward and Dr. Anna Peters, representing Earth's military and scientific communities respectively. The council chamber stretched impossibly high, with floating platforms holding representatives from over 300 spacefaring civilizations. The 7 high counselors sat upon elevated thrones, their alien features barely visible through the shifting light barriers that protected them. Species 4729, designation, humans, announced the metallic voice of the council's eye, presenting petition for membership and trade rights. High Counselor Sith, a towering being with crystalline skin, leaned forward. "We have reviewed your application, humans. We have also been watching your species for the past 500 years. The revelation sent a chill down Ambassador Miller's spine. Earth's governments had only detected alien observation satellites 3 years ago, leading to this very meeting. Your species, continued Sith, demonstrates concerning behavioral patterns. Your history is drenched in warfare. Your entertainment glorifies violence. Your technological advancement focuses primarily on weapons development." Dr. Peters stepped forward. "With respect, High Counselor, humanity has made great strides in peaceful technologies. Our medical advancements alone." "Silence," thundered another counselor, this one resembling a mass of floating tentacles. "You speak out of turn, primitive." General Ward's hand instinctively moved toward where his sidearm would usually be, but the council's security measures had stripped them of all weapons before entry. The next hour became increasingly humiliating as the council systematically tore apart Earth's achievements. They dismissed human art as crude, human science as borrowed concepts, and human culture as barbaric. Furthermore, Sith declared, "We have evidence that humans have already begun militarizing their space program, despite our laws forbidding unauthorized weapons in space." Ambassador Miller tried to object. "Those are defensive measures only. We didn't even know about the council until—" "Enough." The chamber vibrated with Sith's voice. "The council has reached its decision. Not only is your membership petition rejected, but we are implementing a level 5 trade embargo on your solar system." The human delegation froze. A level 5 embargo meant no trade with any council species, no access to interstellar shipping lanes, and no permission to expand beyond their solar system. "You cannot do this." General Ward finally spoke, his voice steady, but filled with barely contained anger. "Earth has sovereign rights." "Earth has the rights we choose to give it," interrupted a bird-like counselor. "Consider yourselves fortunate that we don't simply quarantine your entire system." As the humans were escorted out, they passed dozens of alien representatives who either looked at them with disgust or quickly turned away. Only one, a small green-skinned being, dared to give them a sympathetic glance. Back on their ship, Ambassador Miller slumped in his chair. "This is a disaster. They've been watching us for centuries, judging us, and now they're cutting us off from the galaxy. They're afraid of us," Dr. Peters said quietly, reviewing the meeting recordings. "Did you notice? Beneath all that contempt, they're terrified of human potential." General Ward stood by the viewing window, watching the massive council station slowly rotate against the backdrop of stars. "They should be," he said grimly. "They just made the biggest mistake in their history." "What do you mean?" Miller asked. "Think about it." Ward turned to face them. "They've been watching us for hundreds of years. They've seen how humans react when backed into a corner. They've witnessed our world wars, our cold wars, our endless conflicts. And their solution was to publicly humiliate us and then try to cage us in our own solar system." Dr. Peters' eyes widened as she understood. "They don't understand human psychology at all, do they?" "No," Ward smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "They just united all of Earth's nations against a common enemy. And they did it while proving they've been spying on us and now want to cripple our development." Ambassador Miller straightened in his chair. "I need to contact Earth immediately. The Security Council needs to hear about this." As their ship broke away from the Council station, none of them spoke about the plans already forming in their minds. The Council had made their judgment based on humanity's past. They were about to learn, painfully, that humanity's capacity for violence was matched only by its ability to innovate when threatened. The stars seemed to dim slightly, as if they too sensed the coming storm. The underground facility beneath the Rocky Mountains buzzed with activity. 6 months had passed since the disastrous Galactic Council meeting, and humanity had not wasted a single day. Deep within the reinforced chambers, Admiral William Clark studied the holographic display showing Earth's secret shipyards on the dark side of the moon. "Project Prometheus is ahead of schedule," reported Chief Engineer Mary Wilson, her eyes gleaming with pride. "The Council's surveillance satellites never detected our construction because they weren't looking for ships built inside asteroids." The Admiral nodded, watching as another massive section of hull was assembled in the vacuum of space. "And the new shield breaker technology. That's the beautiful part," Mary grinned, pulling up another display. "We discovered something the aliens never considered. Their entire defensive technology is based on deflecting energy weapons. They never developed proper kinetic weapon defenses because they considered them primitive." "Their mistake." Clark smiled. "How are the railgun tests going?" "Phenomenal. Our tungsten rounds pass straight through their shield systems like they don't even exist. The aliens got so focused on energy weapons that they forgot the basics of physics." In another section of the facility, Director John Foster oversaw the Intelligence Division. Screens covered the walls, showing intercepted alien communications and trade routes. The Council's arrogance had made them careless. Their encryption was complex, but not unbreakable. "Look at this," Foster pointed to a trade map. "They're so dependent on their shipping lanes. Knock out these 3 intersections, and a quarter of their economy collapses." The door slid open, and Professor Helen Baker hurried in, carrying a tablet. "We've cracked it," she announced excitedly. "The alien AI systems, they're all connected to a central network. They never considered someone might hack it because they think we're too primitive to understand their technology." Foster's eyes lit up. "Can we use this?" "Better," Helen replied. "We can turn their own defense systems against them. When we're ready to strike, we can shut down their automated responses or even make their weapons target their own ships." Meanwhile, in a sealed chamber deep within the facility, test pilot Jack Turner climbed into the cockpit of humanity's newest weapon. The fighter looked nothing like traditional spacecraft. It was angular, black as space itself, and designed to be virtually invisible to alien sensors. "Beginning stealth test," Jack reported, as the ship powered up silently. The aliens relied on energy signatures for detection. They never thought to look for ships that ran cold and dark. In orbit, the first fleet of Earth's new navy assembled in secret. The ships were smaller than alien vessels, but far more maneuverable. Where alien ships were bright and obvious, humanity's vessels were dark and lethal, designed for hit-and-run tactics that would confuse and terrify their enemies. Back in the command center, Admiral Clark received the daily reports from Earth's other hidden bases. Australia's underground facilities were producing advanced AI systems designed to outthink alien combat computers. Russia's Siberian complex had perfected a new form of stealth material. Brazil's Atlantic platform was training crews in zero-G combat tactics that would seem chaotic and unpredictable to alien strategists. "Sir," Mary called out, "we've just received word from the lunar base. The first dreadnought is ready for testing." Clark walked to the main window overlooking the assembly area. Workers were putting the finishing touches on dozens of smaller warships. Each one represented humanity's response to alien arrogance, a perfect blend of primitive kinetic weapons and advanced technology that the Council never imagined humans could develop. "They thought they could cage us," Clark said quietly. "They thought we would accept their judgment and stay quietly in our solar system. Instead, they gave us a reason to unite, to push our technology further than ever before. When do we strike? Foster asked, joining him at the window. Clark checked his watch, a habit from old naval days. Soon. We'll wait until they're completely convinced we've accepted their embargo. Let them think they've won. And then. He didn't need to finish the sentence. Everyone in the facility knew what was coming. Humanity had been insulted, threatened, and caged. The response would shock the galaxy and teach the Council a lesson they would never forget. In the darkness of space, Earth's hidden fleet waited, ready to show the galaxy why you should never corner a species that had perfected the art of war. The Council trade fleet moved through space with the arrogant confidence of those who believed themselves untouchable. 12 massive cargo ships, each laden with precious resources, followed their standard route near Alpha Centauri. Their escort ships maintained a loose formation, their crews relaxed and unconcerned. Captain David stood on the bridge of the EFS Nemesis, hidden in the shadow of a small asteroid. His ship, along with 5 others, had been waiting for 3 days. The alien vessel's shields glowed faintly blue against the starfield, a display of power that was about to prove meaningless. "All ships report ready," his tactical officer whispered, though in space there was no need for quiet. "Enemy fleet is entering the kill zone." David's hand tightened on his command chair. "Remember the briefing. Hit their engines first. No survivors, no witnesses. The Council needs to think these ships simply vanished." The human fleet moved like shadows between the stars. Their dark hulls, covered in light-absorbing materials, were invisible to alien sensors. The Council ships never saw them coming. "Weapons range in 5 seconds, the tactical officer reported. "Rail guns charged, target solutions locked." David took a deep breath. "All ships, execute." The first shots were fired at near-relativistic speeds. Tungsten rods, accelerated to incredible velocities, passed through the alien shields as if they weren't there. The Council escort's engines exploded silently in space, their crews having no time to even register what had happened. "Second salvo. Target their communication arrays," David ordered calmly. "Don't let them get a distress signal out." The cargo ships, now realizing they were under attack, began to power up their weapons. Their energy beams lanced out into space, but the human ships were already moving, using maneuvers that seemed chaotic, but were precisely calculated to confuse alien targeting systems. One Council ship managed to raise its captain on the emergency channel. "We're under attack." "Our shields are. That's impossible. They're using primitive kinetic weapons, but somehow." The transmission cut off as another salvo of rail gunfire tore through the ship's command center. The remaining cargo vessels attempted to scatter, but their massive bulk made them easy targets for the agile human ships. "Sir," the sensor officer called out, "one ship is preparing for a jump to hyperspace." "Not today," David replied. "Deploy the gravity mines." Small dark objects detached from the human ships, spreading out in a web pattern. When the Council ship attempted its jump, the mines activated. The resulting gravitational distortion tore the alien vessel apart, scattering its cargo across space. In less than 15 minutes, it was over. Where once a mighty Council trade fleet had traveled, now only debris remained, slowly tumbling in the void. The human ships moved carefully through the wreckage, gathering any intact technology for study. "Send the coded burst to command," David ordered. Operation Shadow Strike successful. No survivors. No witnesses. Back on Earth, Admiral Clark received the news with grim satisfaction. The first blow had been struck, and the Council wouldn't even know they were under attack until it was too late. In the following days, more Council ships would vanish. Trade routes that had been safe for centuries became dangerous mysteries. The Council's mighty fleets would patrol empty space, finding no trace of the attackers who seemed to strike from nowhere and disappear just as quickly. 3 weeks after the first attack, the Council called an emergency session. The great hall that had once witnessed Earth's humiliation now echoed with angry accusations and fearful debates. Another fleet lost in the Orient sector, High Counselor Sith announced, his crystalline form dimmed with worry. No distress calls, no debris, no explanations. Ships simply vanish. It must be the Drachnid Empire, one member shouted. They've always resented our power. Impossible, another countered. These attacks show a level of precision the Drachnids never possessed. None of them suspected the primitive humans they had dismissed. None of them imagined that the species they had tried to cage was now methodically dismantling their trade networks, gathering intelligence, and preparing for an even larger assault. In his command center, Admiral Clark watched the Council's panicked discussions through hacked feeds. "Let them blame each other," he murmured. "By the time they figure it out, it will be far too late." The stars seemed to shine brighter now, as if approving of humanity's vengeful dance through space. The Galactic Council's grand chamber had lost its former splendor. Emergency lights cast harsh shadows across worried faces as representatives argued amongst themselves. 3 months of mysterious ship disappearances had shattered their sense of superiority. "The Stellar Republic must be behind these attacks," shouted the representative of the Crystal Worlds, his crystalline form flashing with anger. "Only they possess the technology to. We have lost just as many ships." The Republic's delegate interrupted. "Our economy is on the verge of collapse because of these phantom raiders." High Counselor Sith slammed his energy staff against the floor, demanding order. Before he could speak, an aide rushed in, face pale with fear. "The Centauri Defense Fleet. It's gone. All 50 ships just vanished." Silence fell over the chamber. The Centauri fleet had been one of their strongest battle groups, sent to protect a vital trade route. Its loss was unthinkable. Meanwhile, aboard the human stealth carrier ESS Retribution, Commander Linda Anderson watched the Council's proceedings through hacked feeds. Her battle group had just finished destroying the Centauri fleet, using tactics that would have seemed insane 6 months ago. "Send the message to the minor species," she ordered. "Now's the time." Across Council space, 12 less powerful species received encrypted communications. The messages were simple. Earth offered protection and alliance, in exchange for their quiet support. These were species the Council had long ignored or exploited, and they responded eagerly to the chance for revenge. Back in the Council chamber, the arguments grew more heated. The High Counselors watched helplessly as centuries of political unity crumbled under the weight of fear and suspicion. "Our patrols found debris from Council security ships near the Orient sector," one delegate announced. "They were destroyed by their own weapons." "Impossible," Sith protested. "Our security protocols have been compromised," interrupted a small green-skinned being, the same one who had shown sympathy to the humans months ago. "Someone has broken our encryption. Our own defense systems are being turned against us." The chamber erupted in chaos. Accusations flew as ancient rivalries surfaced. Some species withdrew their representatives entirely, retreating to protect their own territories. In Earth's command center, Admiral Clark watched with satisfaction. "Begin Phase 4, he ordered. "Hit their primary supply lines." Captain Linda's fleet moved like ghosts through Council space. Their ships, now accompanied by vessels from their new allies, struck with devastating precision. Supply convoys vanished. Space stations went dark. Manufacturing centers were reduced to rubble. The Council's military response was pathetic. Their ships, bright and obvious against the stars, were easy targets for human stealth vessels. Their formations, perfect for fighting traditional battles, fell apart against guerrilla tactics they had never encountered. "Sir," a sensor operator called out to Linda. "Council battle group at 270. They're firing on each other." Linda smiled grimly. The Council's paranoia was doing half their work for them. Species that had cooperated for centuries now saw enemies everywhere, their trust shattered by phantom attacks they couldn't understand. On a dozen worlds, riots broke out as food and essential supplies ran short. The Council's economy, built on free trade and open space lanes, was collapsing. Some worlds began hoarding resources, making the situation worse. 3 more species requesting secret alliance, reported Earth's diplomatic corps. They're offering military support and intelligence. Admiral Clark nodded. The Council was reaping the consequences of its arrogance. Every species they had ever slighted, every civilization they had looked down upon, was now turning against them. In the Council chamber, now half empty, High Counselor Sith received another devastating report. Their attempts to track the Phantom Raiders had failed completely. Their military was in shambles, their trade routes were death traps, and their member species were turning on each other. Perhaps, suggested the green-skinned delegate quietly, we should consider negotiating with the humans. The chamber fell silent. The suggestion was unthinkable. And yet, was it? None of them had seriously considered humans as the source of their troubles. They had dismissed them as primitives, unworthy of notice. But in the darkness of space, humanity's invisible fleets continued their relentless assault, systematically dismantling the greatest civilization the galaxy had ever known. The Council's age of dominance was ending, brought down by the very species they had tried to cage. A massive hologram filled Earth's central command chamber, showing the positions of every human fleet across Council space. Admiral Clark stood before it, his expression stern as he reviewed the final battle plans. The Council is broken, he announced to the assembled commanders. Their economy has collapsed. Their military is scattered. Now we show them who they really insulted. Across the galaxy, 500 human warships emerged from hiding. Their dark hulls caught the light of distant stars as they formed up into attack formations. Each ship carried weapons that had been refined through months of combat, each crew hardened by successful raids. All fleets report ready, announced the communications officer. Our allies are in position. Clark nodded. Send the message to all Council worlds. Let them see who brought them to their knees. On every Council planet, on every space station and colony, screens came to life with an unexpected broadcast. The message was simple but devastating. Earth revealed itself as the architect of their destruction. In the Council chamber, now barely half full, the remaining representatives watched in horror as human ships appeared on their sensors. Not as scattered raiders this time, but as an overwhelming force that their sensors had never detected. Impossible. High Counselor Sith's crystalline form trembled. The primitives couldn't have built such a fleet. But the evidence was undeniable. Human vessels, accompanied by ships from former Council species who had switched sides, moved with deadly purpose toward key strategic positions. The Arcturus Defense Fleet surrenders. Came the first transmission. We cannot withstand their weapons. More surrenders followed. The Council's remaining military forces, already weakened by months of guerrilla warfare, faced a choice between death and submission. Most chose to live. Commander Peter led the assault on the Council's largest shipyard. His fleet emerged from hyperspace directly above the facility, their rail guns already firing. The shipyard's shields, designed to stop energy weapons, might as well have been paper. Target their construction base, he ordered. Don't let them complete those new warships. The space around the shipyard turned into a graveyard of half-built vessels and scattered debris. Council workers fled in panic as their mighty facility crumbled around them. On 3 major Council worlds, populations rioted as the truth became known. The species they had dismissed as primitive had systematically dismantled their civilization. The mighty Galactic Council had been brought low by the very humans they had tried to contain. The Centauri systems announced their withdrawal from the Council, reported Earth's Intelligence Division. They're requesting immediate peace talks. Similar messages poured in from other major powers. The Council's structure, built on millennia of tradition and power, was collapsing in real time. In orbit around the Council's capital world, Admiral Clark's flagship emerged from stealth mode. Behind it, 300 warships appeared like avenging angels against the star-filled backdrop. Your civilization survives only because we allow it, Clark transmitted to the panicked council. Your power exists only because we haven't chosen to take it. The words echoed through every council chamber and meeting hall. The species that had once sneered at humanity's primitive nature now trembled before its military might. How? Sith demanded over an open channel. How did you build all this without our knowledge? Clark's response was cold. You watched us for centuries but learned nothing. You saw our wars but missed our ingenuity. You noted our violence but ignored our unity in the face of threats. On the council capital world, citizens looked up at their night sky, now filled with dark human ships that had appeared from nowhere. The sight shattered their last illusions of superiority. We offer you one chance, Clark continued. Surrender your authority. Accept a new order, one based on merit rather than ancient privilege, or we can continue demonstrating why you should have feared us from the start. The council's response was immediate. 3 of the 7 high counselors formally surrendered their positions. Others would soon follow. Humanity had revealed its true strength, and the galaxy would never be the same. The primitive species had become the master, and they had done it not through brute force alone, but through strategy, innovation, and the very determination the Council had dismissed as barbaric. The stars seemed to dim as humanity's dark ships moved into position around the Council's capital, ready to enforce a new era of galactic order. The Council's capital station hung in space like a wounded giant. Its once pristine surface now bore the scars of battle, and its shields flickered weakly against the void. Commander Marcus watched from the bridge of the EFS's Vengeance as human forces surrounded the massive structure. Final breach teams in position, reported his tactical officer. All escape routes are blocked. Our allies have sealed off the hyperspace lanes. Marcus nodded grimly. Begin the final assault. Remember, capture the High Counselors alive. Let them face judgment for their arrogance. Human ships moved in perfect formation, their dark hulls reflecting no light. The station's automated defenses tried to target them, but the AI systems had been compromised months ago. Every shot missed. Every missile detonated harmlessly in empty space. Inside the station, panic spread through the corridors. Council guards, their energy weapons useless against human armor, fell back in disarray. The station's central AI, corrupted by human hackers, turned off life support in selected sections, hurting the defenders exactly where the assault teams wanted them. High Council chamber breached, came the report from Team Leader Ryan. But something's wrong. The chamber's empty. Marcus frowned. Scan for their emergency bunker. They must have. Sir, his sensor officer interrupted. Massive energy spike from the lower levels. They're trying to activate some kind of weapon. Deep within the station, the remaining High Counselors huddled around an ancient device. Sith's crystalline form pulsed with desperate energy as he activated the controls. The Ancestor's weapon will destroy them all, he declared. We cannot lose our power to primitives. But when he pressed the final activation sequence, nothing happened. The weapon, like every other system on the station, had been compromised by human technology. Looking for this, a voice asked from the doorway. A human engineer held up a critical component she had removed hours earlier. Behind her, armored troops moved into position. The High Counselor's capture was broadcast across Council space. The mighty leaders who had once dismissed humanity as barbaric now stood in chains, their powers stripped away. Search their private databases, Marcus ordered. Let's show everyone what their noble council really was. The revelations came quickly. Secret files showed centuries of manipulation and corruption. The Council had deliberately held back technological development of lesser species. They had engineered conflicts to maintain their power. Every high principle they claimed to uphold had been violated in their quest for control. Sir, an intelligence officer reported, we found their list of targeted species. Earth wasn't the first world they tried to contain, just the first one that fought back successfully. In the station's grand chamber, now under human control, Marcus received reports from across Council space. Former member species were declaring independence. New alliances were forming. The careful political structure built over thousands of years was dissolving. They're surrendering everywhere, his executive officer reported. The Council's military forces are standing down. It's over. But Marcus knew better. No, he said quietly. It's just beginning. Winning the war was the easy part. Now we have to build something better. He walked to the High Council's elevated platform, now occupied by human officers and representatives from allied species. Below them, the chamber that had once humiliated Earth's ambassadors was filled with delegates seeking humanity's protection and leadership. Their biggest mistake, Marcus told his officers, wasn't rejecting us from their council. It was showing us exactly how a galactic civilization shouldn't be run. The station's AI, now fully under human control, began transmitting the Council's secret files to every world in their former territory. The truth would ensure that no one mourned the Council's fall. As captured Council members were led away to face trial, Marcus looked out at the stars through the chamber's vast windows. Humanity had not just defeated the Council, they had utterly broken its power and exposed its corruption. The species that had been dismissed as primitive had proven themselves masters of warfare, strategy, and justice. The galaxy was entering a new age, and humanity would ensure it was better than the last. The Council's fall was complete, and from its ashes, a new order would rise. 1 year after the Council's fall, Earth's Grand Assembly Hall hosted representatives from over 500 species. The massive chamber, built into the side of Mount Everest, dwarfed the old Council facility in both size and grandeur. Admiral Clark, now serving as Earth's representative to the new Galactic Alliance, stood at the central podium. Behind him, the wall-sized window showed both the mountain's peak and the sprawling starport in the valley below. The first year of our new order has proven one thing, he addressed the gathered delegates. Power based on merit, not tradition, creates true stability. The changes across former Council space have been dramatic. Earth's leadership style differed fundamentally from the old regime. Where the Council had demanded obedience, humanity required proof of worth. Trade volume has increased 300%, reported the Commerce Minister, a being from one of the formerly oppressed species. Free exchange of technology has accelerated development across all member worlds. The new system was simple but effective. Species seeking membership had to demonstrate their value to the galactic community. Some contributed unique technologies, others provided resources or cultural achievements. Every member earned their place. The Arcturus Defense Fleet reports another pirate group eliminated, announced the military coordinator. Our combined forces continue to maintain peace in all sectors. The new military structure reflected humanity's influence. Ships from different species trained together, sharing tactics and technologies. The dark, efficient designs of human vessels had been widely adopted, though each species added their own innovations. Former Council races, stripped of their unearned privileges, were required to prove themselves just like everyone else. Many had already earned respectable positions through genuine achievement rather than inherited status. The medical exchange program has produced remarkable results, reported Dr. Helen Baker, now heading the Alliance's scientific division. Combining different species' medical knowledge has led to breakthroughs in treating diseases previously thought incurable. In orbit above Earth, the massive station Unity served as a symbol of the new era. Unlike the Council's ornate but inefficient capital, Unity was a marvel of practical engineering. Ships from hundreds of worlds docked there daily, carrying diplomats, traders, and explorers. The education initiative has exceeded all expectations, announced the Alliance's learning coordinator. Over 10,000 cross-species universities have opened in the past year. This was perhaps humanity's greatest victory, the free exchange of knowledge. The Council's practice of hoarding information had been replaced by open sharing of discoveries. Progress that once took centuries now happened in years. Former High Councilor Sith, now serving a life sentence, watched the proceedings from his prison cell. The being who had once dismissed humans as primitives saw his former empire transformed into something far greater than the Council had ever been. "We've received applications from 30 new species seeking membership," reported the diplomatic corps. All have begun their merit evaluation process. The assessment system was rigorous but fair. New members had to demonstrate not just technological advancement, but also ethical behavior, cooperative potential, and genuine contribution to galactic society. Admiral Clark concluded the session with a reminder of their core principle: power is earned, not given. Position comes from merit, not tradition. Every species here has proven their worth, and every species must continue to do so. The assembly hall erupted in approval. Even former council races, having earned their new positions through genuine achievement, joined in the celebration. They had learned that earned respect felt better than inherited privilege. As the session ended, Clark stood at the great window, watching ships rise from the starport. Human vessels flew alongside alien craft, all sharing the same dark, efficient designs that had once terrified the council. They thought they were caging a primitive species, he mused to his aide. Instead, they forced us to become something greater. The stars shone brightly over Earth, now the center of a new galactic civilization. Humanity had not just taken revenge. They had built something better from the ashes of the old order. The species that the Council had tried to contain had become not just conquerors, but leaders, teachers, and guardians of the new age. The galaxy had learned a crucial lesson: never underestimate those you consider primitive. For in their struggle to prove themselves, they might just surpass everything you thought possible. In the depths of space, countless ships carried the new order to distant stars, their dark hulls a reminder of how humanity had risen from insulted primitives to become the architects of a better galaxy.